Hi guys, welcome to the channel of love. Okay, I'm here with your bedtime storytelling. We are reading The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and I believe we might be reading 2 chapters tonight. Okay, chapter 4, A Magical Meeting with the Sages of Savannah. After walking for many hours along an intricate series of paths and grassy trails, the 2 travellers came upon a lush green valley. On one side of the valley, the snow-capped Himalayas offered their protection, like weather-beaten soldiers guarding the places where their generals rested. On the other, a thick forest of pine trees sprouted, a perfectly natural tribute to this enchanting fantasy land. The sage looked at Julian and smiled gently. "Welcome to the Nirvana of Savannah." The 2 then descended along another, less travelled way and into the thick forest that formed the floor of the valley. The smell of pine and sandalwood wafted through the cool, crisp mountain air. Julian, now barefoot to ease his aching feet, felt the damp moss under his toes. He was surprised to see richly coloured orchids and a host of other lovely flowers dancing among the trees, as if rejoicing in the beauty and splendour of this tiny slice of heaven. In the distance, Julian could hear gentle voices, soft and soothing to the ear. He continued to follow the sage without making a sound. After walking for about 15 more minutes, the 2 men reached a clearing. Before him was a sight that even the worldly wise and rarely surprised Julian Mantle could never have imagined. A small village made solely out of what appeared to be roses. At the centre of the village was a tiny temple, the kind Julian had seen on his trips to Thailand and Nepal, but this temple was made of red, white and pink flowers, held together with long strands of multicoloured string and twigs. The little huts that dotted the remaining space appeared to be the austere homes of the sages. These were also made of roses. Julian was speechless. As for the monks who inhabited the village, those he could see looked like Julian's travelling companion, who now revealed that his name was Yogi Raman. He explained that he was the elder sage of Savannah and the leader of this group. The citizens of this dreamlike colony looked astonishingly youthful and moved with poise and purpose. None of them spoke, choosing instead to respect the tranquillity of this place by performing their tasks in silence. The men, who appeared to number only about 10, wore the same red-robed uniform as Yogi Raman and smiled serenely at Julian as he entered their village. Each of them looked calm, healthy and deeply contented. It was as if the tensions that plague so many of us in our modern world had sensed that they were not welcome at this summit of serenity and moved on to more inviting prospects. Though it had been many years since there had been a new face among them, these men were controlled in their reception, offering a simple bow as their greeting to this visitor who had travelled so far to find them. The women were equally impressive, in their flowing pink silk saris and with white lotuses adorning their jet black hair. They moved busily through the village with exceptional agility. However, this was not the frantic busyness that pervades the lives of people in our society. Instead, theirs was of easy, graceful kind, with Zen-like focus. Some worked inside the temple, preparing for what appeared to be a festival. Others carried firewood and richly embroidered tapestries. All were engaged in productive activity. All appeared to be happy. Ultimately, the faces of the sages of Savannah revealed the power of their way of life. Even though they were clearly mature adults, each one of them radiated a childlike quality, their eyes twinkling with the vitality of youth. None of them had wrinkles, none of them had grey hair, none of them looked old. Julian, who could scarcely believe what he was experiencing, was offered a feast of fresh fruits and exotic vegetables, a diet that he would later learn was one of the keys to the treasure trove of ideal health enjoyed by the sages. After the meal, Yogi Raman escorted Julian to his living quarters, a flower-filled hut containing a small bed with an empty journal pad on it. This would be his home for the foreseeable future. Though Julian had never seen anything like this magical world of Savannah, he somehow felt that this had been a homecoming of sorts, a return to a paradise that he had known long ago. Somehow this village of roses was not so foreign to him. His intuition told him that he belonged here, if only for a short period. This would be the place where he would rekindle the fire for living that he had known before the legal profession stole his soul, a sanctuary where his broken spirit would slowly start to heal. And so began Julian's life among the sages of Savannah, a life of simplicity, serenity, and harmony. The best was soon to come. Chapter 5. A spiritual student of the sages. Great dreams are never fulfilled. They are always transcended. Alfred Lloyd Whitehead. I'll just repeat that quote for you. Great dreamers' dreams are never fulfilled. They are always transcended. Albert Lord Whitehead. It was now 8 p.m, and I still had to prepare for my court appearance the next day. Yet I was fascinated by the experience of this formal legal warrior who had dramatically transformed his life after meeting and studying under these marvellous sages from India. How amazing, I thought, and what an extraordinary transformation. I secretly wondered whether the secrets Julian had learned in that far-off mountain hideaway could also elevate the quality of my life and replenish my own sense of wonder for the world we live in. The longer I listened to Julian, the more I came to realise that my own spirit had become rusty. What had happened to the uncommon passion I brought to everything I did when I was younger? Back then, even the simplest of things filled me with a sense of joy. Maybe it was time for me to reinvent my destiny. Sensing my fascination with his Odyssey and my eagerness to learn the system of enlightened living that the sages had passed on to him, Julian quickened the pace as he continued with his tale. He told me how his desire for knowledge, coupled with his sharp intellect, refined through many years of battles in the courtroom, had made him a well-loved member of the Savannah community. As a mark of their affection for Julian, the monks eventually made him an honorary member of their band. I think that says band. Okay. The monks eventually made him an honorary member of their band and treated him like an integral part of their extended family. Eager to expand his knowledge of the workings of the mind, body and soul, and to attain self-mastery, Julian spent literally every waking moment under the tutelage of Yogi Raman. The sage became more like a father to Julian than a teacher, though they were separated in age by only a few years. It was clear that this man had the accumulated wisdom of many lifetimes, and most happily he was willing to share it with Julian. Beginning before dawn, Yogi Raman would sit with his enthusiastic student and fill his mind with insights on the meaning of life and little known techniques that he had mastered for living with greater vitality, creativity, and fulfillment. He taught Julian ancient principles which he said anyone could use to live longer, stay younger, and grow far happier. Julian also learned how the twin disciplines of personal mastery and self-responsibility would keep him from returning to the chaos of crisis that had characterized his life in the West. As the weeks slipped into months, he came to understand the treasure trove of potential sleeping within his own mind, waiting to be awakened and used for higher purposes. Sometimes the teacher and his student would simply sit and watch the blazing Indian sun rising from the deep green meadows far below. Sometimes they would rest in quiet meditation, savouring the gifts that silence brings. Sometimes they would walk through the pine forest, discussing points of philosophy and enjoying the pleasures of each other's company. Julian said that the first indications of his personal expansion came after only 3 weeks in Savannah. He started noticing the beauty in the most ordinary of things, whether it was the marvel of a starry night or the enchantment of a spider's web after it had rained. Julian absorbed it all. He also said that his new lifestyle and the new habits associated with it started to have a profound effect on his inner world. Within a month of applying the principles and techniques of the sages, he told me that he had begun to cultivate the deep sense of peace and inner serenity that had eluded him in all the years he had lived in the West. He became more joyful and spontaneous, growing more energetic and creative with each passing day. Physical vitality and spiritual strength followed the changes in Julian's attitude. His once overweight frame grew strong and lean, while the sickly pallor that had characterized his face was replaced by a splendid shimmer of health. He actually felt as if he could do anything, be anything, and unlock the infinite potential that he learned was inside every one of us. He started to cherish life and see the divinity in every aspect of it. The ancient system of this mystical band of monks had started to work its miracles. After pausing, as if to express disbelief at his own tale, Julian grew philosophical. "I've realised something very important, John. The world, and that includes my inner world, is a very special place. I've also come to see that success on the outside means nothing unless you also have success within. There is a huge difference between well-being and being well off. When I was a hotshot lawyer, I used to snicker at all those people who worked at improving their inner and outer lives. Get a life, I thought. But I have learned that self-mastery and the consistent care of one's mind, body and soul are essential to finding one's higher self and living the life of one's dreams. How can you care for others if you cannot even care for yourself? How can you do good if you don't even feel good? How can you love Oh, it doesn't say that. Sorry, guys. Okay. So how can you do good if you don't even feel good? I can't love you if I cannot love myself, he offered. Suddenly, Julian grew flustered and slightly uneasy. I've never opened my heart to anyone like this before. I apologise for this, John. It is just that I experienced such hold on, guys. A catharsis. I experienced such a catharsis up in those mountains, such a spiritual awakening to the powers of the universe, that I feel others need to know what I know. Noticing that it was getting late, Julian quickly told me, he would take his leave and bid me adieu. You can't leave now, Julian. I'm really pumped up to hear the wisdom you learnt in the Himalayas and the message you promised your teachers you will bring back to the West. You can't leave me in suspense. You know I can't stand it. I'll be back. Rest assured, my friend. You know me. Once I start telling a good story, I just can't stop. But you have your work to do, and I have some private matters that need to be taken care of. Just tell me one thing then. Will the method you learned in the savannah work for me? When the student is ready, the teacher appears, came the swift reply. You, along with so many others in our society, are ready for the wisdom I now have the privilege of holding. Every one of us should know the philosophy of the sages. Every one of us can benefit by it. Every one of us must know of the perfection that is their natural state. I promise I will share their ancient knowledge with you. Have patience. I will meet you again tomorrow night, this time at your house. Then I'll tell you all that you need to know to put far more living into your life. Is that fair? Yeah, I guess. If I've done without it all these years, waiting another 24 hours won't kill me, I responded with disappointment. And with that, the master litigator turned enlightened yogi of the East was gone, leaving me with a mind full of unanswered questions and unfinished thoughts. As I sat in my office quietly, I realised how small our world really was. I thought about the vast pool of knowledge that I had not even begun to dip my fingers into. I thought about how it might feel to regain my own zest for living, and about the curiosity I had when I was younger. I would love to feel more alive and to bring unbridled energy to my days. Maybe I too would leave the legal profession. Maybe there was a higher calling for me as well. With these weighty considerations on my mind, I turned out the lights, locked the door to my office, and walked out into the thick heat of another summer's night. Okay, guys, that's the end of your 2 chapters. I do apologise for my mispronunciations. I do love how it says here, have patience. I will meet with you again tomorrow night. This time at your house. Okay, you guys know the time, 11:11. Okay, I will see you again tomorrow at this time. My house. Okay, groovy. Guys, until then, sweet dreams.